Next on Current News, a pivotal day in the pandemic. The FDA could approve emergency use of a potentially life-saving COVID vaccine. Then the toll the pandemic is having on students with special needs and what's being done about it. We'll meet the new president of St. John's University and find out what his plans are for the school. Plus, Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens spreading Christmas cheer. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. Christine Persichetti is off tonight. An advisory panel at the Food and Drug Administration today is talking about approving an emergency use authorization for a COVID vaccine. The rapid development of a potentially life-saving medicine is historic. Next step, distributing it to turn the tide of the pandemic. Nadia Romero reports.
As COVID-19 continues to ravage the country, Americans getting a vaccine could stop the spread in its tracks.
We have found this information to be adequate to support emergency use authorization of the vaccine.
From the FDA to the CDC, where a committee there must also give the vaccine a green light. And if that happens,
20 million people should get vaccinated in just the next several weeks.
So here's how Pfizer-BioNTech says it'll happen. Within 24 hours of the FDA's emergency authorization, much of the vaccine will be shipped from Pfizer's facility in Michigan. First, going to hospitals and pharmacies nationwide that partner with the federal government. Next, healthcare workers and residents in long-term care facilities are at the top of the list to get the vaccine. But that timeline could depend on which state you live in. Take Illinois, for example.
Yes, there are a lot of people in that priority group, and yes, we want to make sure we get it to you, but no, it won't happen on day one or week one or maybe even week two. So patience will be the name of the game.
So for younger, relatively healthy, non-essential workers,
end of March, early April. Once you get into April, probably full blast with those individuals.
Some details are still being ironed out, but the goal is to make it as simple as getting a seasonal flu shot.
They'll come in at their scheduled time. They'll meet with the pharmacist or technician. They'll get their flu shot. They'll get a record card with the vaccination that they got. We'll also email them that record.
In Washington, Nadia Romero, Currents News.
In New York City, special education students in public schools returned to in-class learning. The Department of Education reopened its district's 75 schools. It's part of Mayor Bill de Blasio's effort to return the youngest and most vulnerable students to campus following the shutdown of school buildings because of rising coronavirus cases. Preschool and elementary school students returned to classrooms on Monday. For some of the most vulnerable students, learning and thriving during the pandemic has at best been difficult. Here in New York and across the nation, parents are fighting to have the educational needs of their children met. Some even suing, claiming that districts aren't providing services tailored to meet the needs of special education students.
Hi guys.
Teaching and learning during the pandemic has been an uphill battle, especially difficult for special education students.
We had to think of new inventive ways of getting the students engaged and actually online.
Since the pandemic hit in March, Carrie Okula and the special education team at Divine Wisdom Catholic Academy have been working on overdrive. This learning lab is one of the ways the school is trying to stay ahead of the curve and on top of students' needs. This is where they can get the extra help they need during this turbulent time.
Every day it's a challenge, and every day brings new challenges.
And across the country, parents are challenging different departments of education. Unlike the program at Divine Wisdom Catholic Academy, parents don't feel like the needs of their children with special needs are being met. Lawsuits have been popping up in multiple states. Families in Hawaii, New York, Connecticut, Texas, and more allege mishandling of students' special education. And right here in New York City, parents of 8 children have filed a federal lawsuit claiming the Department of Education has failed to fulfill their children's IEPs, a map that lays out a child's special education programming. These families say they were denied therapists, translators, and technology. They believe their child's progress has halted or in some cases regressed. And a recently released report report from the New York City Department of Education shows tens of thousands of students with disabilities did not get their mandated services. On the other hand, here in Douglaston, Carrie and her team provide services for about 60 kids. They're not immune to the struggles of the pandemic, saying access to students and coordinating schedules were very difficult at first. But for Carrie, this isn't just a job, it's a calling.
I was a one-on-one aide with a student that was nonverbal and has autism. So it was a very close relationship, and from September to June, just seeing his interactions and him grow as a student, it was great.
She says their goal at this time was to have good communication and be very accessible to their students.
If we're not seeing them, and they're going to regress, we're going to see major deficits. So the students, as we continue to see them, their strengths are improving and their skills are improving.
The principal calls their level of commitment remarkable.
They make the time, whether it's during the school day or after school, to make sure that they are meeting with all their students and that the students are getting whatever services that they need.
Divine Wisdom Catholic Academy is in the classroom 5 days a week. They also have a separate program for students who feel more comfortable learning virtually. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says he has a plan to address academic learning loss caused by the pandemic.
We need to make sure that our teachers have new tools, new training, have the ability to use digital approaches in new ways.
The mayor added that teachers in public schools will need to develop individual plans tailored to each student so they can recover academically and confront any mental health issues caused by the pandemic. He also said there will be an outreach to parents to engage them in their children's education and needs. And still ahead on Currents News, the new president of St. John's University, Father Brian Shanley, will join us to talk about his plans for the Catholic University during this pandemic. That's still ahead in this newscast. Controversy is swirling around one of Joe Biden's cabinet picks. The projected winner of the presidential election has nominated California Attorney General Xavier Becerra to lead the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Catholics are at odds over the choice. While the Catholic Health Association praises him for protecting the welfare of immigrants, National Right to Life and other pro-life leaders criticize him for his record on abortion, calling him the most pro-abortion HHS secretary ever. In 2017, Becerra sued the Trump administration for expanding the religious exemption to the ACA's contraceptive mandate. Hunter Biden has acknowledged that he is under a grand jury investigation over his, quote, tax affairs. Meanwhile, the 50-year-old's dealings with the Chinese outlined in a Senate investigation reportedly have been flagged for potential criminal activity. The report by the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee details Biden's alleged activities with the founder of a Chinese energy company. Some Republicans are calling for a special counsel to handle the investigation, fearing that those prosecutors will be in line to be fired next month if Joe Biden becomes president. 17 states are now joining a Texas lawsuit aimed at delaying the appointment of presidential electors from 4 battleground states. The Texas Attorney General went to the Supreme Court with that claim. The suit says Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin acted unconstitutionally when they changed the election laws that they claim diluted or eliminated safeguards against fraud. Attorneys general from the other states filed a brief with the High Court supporting that. The Trump campaign also filed a brief asking to join the Texas suit. Unemployment claims rose more than expected after the Thanksgiving holiday. The number of first-time claims increased by 853,000 last week. Experts had estimated it would be far less at 730,000, and it was a sharp jump from the 716,000 a week earlier. 5.76 million Americans are currently collecting unemployment insurance. Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens coming to the rescue of many in need this holiday, spreading some Christmas cheer. The organization is holding a toy drive to make sure children in the Diocese of Brooklyn have a Merry Christmas. Currents News' Jessica Easthope reports from Our Lady of Angels in Bay Ridge.
Holiday Barbie! Boxes of toys came flooding in at Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens' first ever toy drive.
These gifts are so great.
In years past, Catholic Charities collected toys from other groups and distributed them during the Christmas season. This year, they're taking charge, and all the toys they can get.
for the children to still believe that there is a Christmas. So more than ever, we really need to be there for our community.
Nearly 900,000 New Yorkers are unemployed this Christmas.
Thank you.
Those who came Thursday with toys for kids of all ages said giving back is more important than ever before.
It has been so hard. So many people are in despair. We need a little bit of Christmas.
This pandemic has made such a difference, and that's what we're here for.
A single box of toys was nearly full when Tammy Rivera, a representative from the New York City Council of Carpenters, came with a truckload of boxes.
Those that can't do it for their family, we're here to help do it for their family.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is hoping to have toys for more than 2,000 kids this year. The first distribution is on December 17th in Rego Park at Our Lady of the Angelus Church. In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The tablet newspaper is looking for some creative kids this holiday season. The annual Christmas Art Contest is on. This year, the event, held in collaboration with the Knights of Columbus, will be digital. Students in grades 1st through 12th in Brooklyn and Queens are invited to express their faith through art with the theme Keep Christ in Christmas. So if your child is interested, they can send their artwork to the tablet.org/2020 art contest. Remember, this is a digital art contest, so no physical artwork will be accepted at the tablet's office. One more thing, Wednesday, January 13th is the deadline, so you have to submit those works of art before 5 p.m. that day. There's a lot more news headed your way. He's taking over as president of St. John's University in the middle of a pandemic. We'll find out what his plans are. Plus, why you won't be getting any extra money from the government even if a new COVID relief bill is passed. And the bishop is here digging deep into the topic of immigration. We'll hear what he has to say.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
As the fall semester comes to a close, St. John's University will be making a fresh start next semester with a new president. Father Brian Shanley will succeed Dr. Bobby Gempasaw in February. Father Shanley, thank you so much for being with us today. So, Father, there's an interesting story behind how you ended up coming to St. John's after spending 15 years at Providence College. Can you tell us how a student helped you make the move?
Well, one thing I've learned in my life is if you want to make God laugh is tell him your plans. So when I was stepping down as president of Providence College, I didn't really have a plan. I just said to God, show me what you want me to do. And in the middle of August, I forget the exact date, I got a phone call from the headhunting firm doing the search at St. John's and said that somebody had nominated me to be the next president of St. John's. And I subsequently came to find out that it was the parent of a PC alum whose kid had said to her father, why aren't they asking Father Shanley about St. John's? And that's what led me to being the next president of St. John's, was a former student asking her father why St. John's isn't looking at Father Shanley. And the rest is history. Here I am.
And what are some of the things you implemented in Providence that you plan to bring here to St. John's?
Well, I think one of the things that we did at Providence since I've been here is created better connections with alumni. And that's something that's going to be a challenge in a COVID time, but St. John's has a huge alumni base, and trying to figure out how to connect to 150,000 people in the middle of a pandemic and create a sense of connection between alums and the campus, I think that's going to be really important for St. John's going forward.
Now you're making the transition during a difficult time. A national survey released today finds college enrollment was down 22% this fall over last year. So how do you plan to keep enrollment up during the pandemic?
Well, that's a challenge everywhere. It's not going to be a peculiar challenge at St. John's. And I think the big challenges that we're going to have at St. John's concerns how do we do remote learning? Because it's likely that in the spring semester, learning will still be largely remote. And that means trying to figure out how to get students access to technology, how to keep students socially connected with each other, I think everybody's feeling isolation from professors to students. And what we need to figure out how to do as best we can is keep a sense of connection and community at St. John's. And I'm looking forward to working all my might to try to make that happen in the spring.
Now the students have already started a long winter break. Will this help you prepare for next semester? And how will you prepare considering almost everything is virtual?
Well, I think the virtual nature of reality, which is what we're dealing with right now, is what the new normal is for at least for the next few months until we get a vaccine. So I think the big challenge for me is to how do I make connections with the community at St. John's? How do I get to know the students, the faculty and staff? Because the first thing you do when you arrive on a campus is try to learn the local culture. And so I'm going to try everything I can to do that, and hopefully we'll be in a position where I could do some of this in person. So depending upon what the circumstances are, we're going to do our best to try to create connections.
Father Brian Shanley, President-elect at St. John's University, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
On Capitol Hill, the House passed a bill to avoid a government shutdown this week, but it's just a stopgap measure. It keeps the government open through December 18th instead of Friday, when funding was set to expire. Lawmakers negotiating next year's spending bill disagreeing on issues like immigration provisions and abortion language. Republican and Democratic lawmakers are also trying to come to a deal on a coronavirus relief package, but at the moment the proposal doesn't include stimulus payments like the one sent to millions of Americans earlier this year. John Lawrence reports.
There's still a stalemate on a stimulus package, and the clock is ticking.
People's eyes are fixed on Congress. They need the House and the Senate to stop chasing our tails and make a law.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers has proposed a deal that includes giving the unemployed $300 more a week for 16 weeks, $300 billion in aid for small businesses, and a continued pause on federal student loan payments through the end of April. The plan doesn't include stimulus checks.
We need a large, bold program to stimulate the economy, help people out of the conditions they're in, but keep the economy going for a long period of time.
Congress is trying to get a bill passed soon because aid programs that were approved in March, including jobless assistance measures and eviction protections, expire before the end of the year.
We're not going home until we do get one. How can you face the people back home that have lost their unemployment check, that have lost their food assistance, they've lost their shelter, all the necessities of life that we take for granted?
Sticking points include state and local aid and liability protection for employers.
This need not be rocket science. But we can't do a thing unless the Democrats decide they actually want to make a law.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Still to come on Currents News, Bishop DiMarzio joins us talking about immigration issues. We'll hear what's on his mind. And in Mexico, Catholics are flocking to the Basilica of Guadalupe ahead of this weekend's closure due to COVID. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Projected winner Joe Biden has promised to reverse many of President Trump's immigration policies, such as the Muslim travel ban and the Mexican border wall. But is doing that beneficial for our country? Here to talk more about that is a leader in immigration, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, who sits down with Ed Wilkinson for this week's Into the Deep. Ed?
Thank you. Bishop DiMarzio is with us today, and we're going to talk about some immigration policies that we can expect from the projected winner, Joe Biden. Bishop, immigration is your issue, and Biden says that he will rescind Trump's Muslim ban through an executive action, and he's going to send legislation to Congress with a pathway to citizenship for the many undocumented people in this country. Is this good policy?
Well, taking each one separately, yes, the Muslim ban was very broad. It affected anybody from certain Muslim countries. Unfortunately, stuck in the pipeline were people who helped us, for example, in Iraq, who were integral to the American effort there, who were really in very bad situations. sometimes have retribution taken against them by people today because they were assisting our forces. Those people are really in danger. So yes, it's a good idea that, again, we have the safeguards in for against disease and terrorism. They are much more stringent today than they ever were. So I think that's a good policy. As far as idea of an amnesty or a regularization for the undocumented in our country, yes, 11 million people at least are living in the shadows. They've been here a long time. These are the people that that are already integrated into our society. They're integrated into workplaces. They should be given an opportunity to remain in this country.
Yeah, and what about the people who were brought here as young people? We refer to them as the DACA people. He wants to make it easier for citizenship for those people. Do you think that's a good policy?
Yes, exactly, because these people know no other country. It's not their fault that they were brought here. They're a very extraordinary group of people, very much into education. And as they grow older, it's more difficult for them to survive in the society because they need Social Security numbers. They need to be able to advance their education. So we really should do that. I think that's a very important thing. And hopefully this can be resolved by legislation, because an executive order isn't enough to really give them status.
Biden also says that he'll stop construction on the wall down on the Mexican border, and it seems to have been working. Does it make sense to reverse a policy like that?
It's really hard to say how it's been working. It's been put up supposedly in the critical areas where there was a lot of traffic coming across, where they could not monitor. Hopefully most of the work is done and we don't have to do any more. I don't know if we're going to take the wall down, but I think certainly we can make sure that we don't have a barrier across between Mexico and the United States that's a sign of division and not a sign of cooperation. Mexico now is cooperating very much more than they did in the past in monitoring their side of the border. So things have changed, actually, for the good in many ways. Difficult things still remain, especially for those people who are seeking asylum. They can't enter. So Biden has also talked about having a more efficient system of offering asylum at the border with the proper type of screening.
Okay, Bishop, thanks for your insights on this. And right now we're going back to the news desk.
Thanks, Ed. Catholics in Mexico City have been visiting the Basilica of Guadalupe ahead of this weekend's closure. Because of the pandemic, the Catholic Church decided to close the Basilica from Thursday to Sunday to avoid crowds that gather for Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day on December 12th. Virtual festivities are being held this year to celebrate the 489th anniversary of the apparition of the Virgin. And Pope Francis has granted a plenary indulgence to Catholics celebrating the feast day at home. In order to receive the indulgence, you must first prepare a home altar in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe. You have to watch a live stream mass from the Basilica on Saturday. Then, once it's possible to do so, you have to go to confession, receive communion, and pray for the Pope's intentions. And that is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.